You're listening to We're All Gonna Die Anyway with Jess Wiener. Don't worry. This is a joyful podcast about life, death, and everything in between. So by now, I think I've established that I love talking to people. And I know that I mentioned that I usually talk to people I've had this instant click with, and a lot of them I've met in person. In fact, on this show so far, you've met a lot of my best friends and dearest friends in my life. Today's guest is a little different because we were strangers when we had this conversation. I mean, I was a fangirl of hers. I have followed my guest's work online, and just like every normal fangirl would do, I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm doing this podcast. Would you come on and talk to me? I know we don't know each other. And thankfully, she said yes. And so I'm so excited to share this conversation with our guest today. Her name is Megan Baca, and she is a poet and a storyteller. And if you follow her work online, or you will after this episode, her work is about personal empowerment and liberation and all things in between. It's about her being a parent of 3 incredible girls and raising them with her husband. And she's from Alaska, and she was one of the only Black girls in her school. And she talks a lot about growing up and figuring out her identity and parenting and motherhood and reparenting, which we're going to get into in a second because we talk about that on the show, the idea of learning how to give yourself what you might not have gotten in childhood and how that affects the way you think about mothering and being out in the world. So I've been reading her work. I've been so inspired by her work. But the truth is, when she came in here to the studio, because we recorded this episode, I think like in February, right in the beginning of recording here in this beautiful space, I met Megan for the first time, like literally down the hallway in our company's restroom. So I didn't know her. I didn't know her personal story as much outside of the professional work that I had seen. And I don't pre-screen our guests. We don't prep a lot of extra interview questions. We just kind of talk about the framework. And what lit me up perhaps the most about this conversation with Megan was that, I don't know, within the first, you'll see, little bit of us talking, we started talking about death and loss of people that she loves in her life and how death has impacted her in profound ways. And I didn't know any of that before we sat down. But when a stranger feels welcome enough and trusts me enough to have that conversation, it is a deep blessing that I take so seriously because I think it's so sacred. And it's why I wanted to do this show, because I wanted to normalize these conversations, have more of them, be less afraid of having them. And when it comes for the first time to have a conversation like this with somebody, it's very special. So we went deep, we went there, and in a way that I think you will find quite enlightening and quite inspiring, because that's really who Megan Baca is. She's this incredible poet, light worker, being in the world, and I'm just so happy to bring her to you. Let's dig in. So we just met for the first time in the bathroom.
Yes. Which is natural.
I know, it feels natural for women.
It feels like the right place for women to meet, of course.
But how, I know we've been in each other's orbit for a minute, and we're certainly social media friends, but how did we first connect with each other? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think,
Me neither.
Honestly, I feel like, knowing me, I probably saw an inspirational thing you posted and immediately followed you. This is what I do. I'm like, yep, I'm feeling this.
I feel like we just adopted each other. And now I watch everything you put out there, and we comment, and we send little emojis back and forth. And then, I don't know, there's just something about, I didn't know you at all, so we're going to get to know each other live and in the moment. But I think I'm a pretty good read of energy, and everything I was just kind of like reading and feeling about you, I was like, man, I just want to talk to you on this show because,
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. And then you liked the name, thank God, because I was afraid some people might hear the title, We're All Gonna Die Anyway, and feel like...
No, it's perfect. I loved it.
It is perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Why does it resonate for you?
It just resonates for me. First of all, I'm the kind of person, how I live my life in general has always been with the focus of making good memories, because I'm very outgoing and, free-spirited and all of that. But at the end of the day, the way I feel about it is I feel like, we're all going to die. We only have this one life. It's going to go by quick. And so I just want to have as much fun as possible.
Yeah.
But also, the only thing that we can really take with us are memories. And the only thing can really leave behind is memories. And so it's really how I think of everything I do, how I live my life. So when I heard the name, I was like, I get it. It didn't creep me out at all. I totally
I'm
understood.
so glad. Then I knew we were really each other's people because I was like, she said yes, and we've never met before.
Yeah.
But tell me, where were you born and raised?
So born and raised in Alaska, actually. Yes,
What
there
part
are
of Alaska?
Black people in Alaska. This is usually the first question I get. Surprise. My parents got there through the military.
Wow.
And just stayed for reasons
What part?
I will never understand. Fairbanks.
Fairbanks.
So.
Okay. And what was it like growing up there?
Cold, mostly. I knew when I was young that it's not where I would stay.
Right.
It just didn't. It never felt like that's where I belonged. But it's really where I fell in love with nature, and I'm like in love with it. And so even today, that is the thing that centers me is nature. So I feel like that's the part of me that I'll always carry from Alaska because of it.
A big family?
No, it's my mom, dad, and I have a little brother. So not. And then we didn't have any family up there. So
Wow, that's also tough.
it was tough. It definitely was tough, but it worked.
Yeah.
And then my family no longer lives there. Of course.
Oh, I was going to ask you if they were still there.
They are in Texas now, where it is warm. So we have always joked that we've all had our fill of cold weather. We're done.
Bet.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about your birth story from your mom?
My birth story. The main thing that I know is, so my mom, there was two before me that did not make it.
Okay.
One's stillborn and then miscarriage. And then by the time I came around, they didn't expect me to make it either.
Really?
They were like, this is literally what the doctor said. They're like, okay, we expect you to miscarry. If you don't miscarry, you'll probably give birth to a stillborn, and if not, they'll probably die of SIDS, which I'm sorry, that's actually, I meant to say SIDS, not stillborn. My older sister died of SIDS. Wow. So that's what they expected with me. And
what a horrible thing to say
horrible.
to a woman.
They weren't left with much hope.
No
but
kidding.
My mom just clung to her faith, and here I am.
Oh my gosh.
So,
and was it a natural birth?
Natural birth. So
Amazing.
it's natural. And they wanted to hook me up to all kinds of things, and my mom and dad both were like, we can't. It's just, we're just going to trust, put our trust in God, our faith, and we're just going to see what happens.
And where does your name have a significance? Is it
Actually, my name, Megan, was my older sister. Her name was Sarah. Her middle name is Megan. So
amazing. So that's a legacy carried on.
Kind of, yeah.
Aww. And if you could think about when you think about your childhood, what are 3 words that come to mind? First 3 words that come to mind?
Oh, hard.
Really?
Very hard. Lonely. Misunderstood.
Tell me about that. What was hard?
I just always felt for a couple of reasons, I never felt like I fit in because I went to a predominantly white private school, Christian school, and so just never really felt like I fit in there just based off, my appearance there and my culture. But besides that, I have a very, like I said, outgoing personality, and I'm talkative, and I was constantly in trouble with teachers, one of those kids. And all of my family's very reserved and introverted and quiet. Wow. And so I was, and of course, my parents were learning as they went too, but at the time they were like, they just kind of felt like, they would say to me often, you're too social, something's wrong with you, you talk too much, fix that part of you.
It's so funny because when we first met in the bathroom, you said, I'm an extrovert.
Yes.
And it sounds like you were that as a little kid.
Always. I was always very talkative, chatty, friendly, outgoing, but my family just is more reserved, just have a tight niche. We're all close now, but at the time, I just felt constantly misunderstood because they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
So they're like, shut up, stop talking. Why is this hard?
So it's hard then if you're in a school where you're feeling different and then you're at home and you're not quite, they're your family unit, but you're not quite in alignment in that way.
At all.
Yeah.
At all. And then I, grew up in the church. And so, church is pretty black and white. And I'm definitely live in the gray. I'm pretty open-minded and all of that. So that was just an interesting, I just didn't feel like I fit at all.
And you were aware of that as a little girl.
Very aware. Super aware. Yeah.
And then how does that shape you, I think, as you grow up as a young woman and into a woman today?
Well, when I was younger, it made me feel like maybe I was a mistake. And it made me feel like, I did deal with lots of feelings of maybe my sister should have been here and maybe I shouldn't have, which is heavy. Yeah. But I did deal with that. And it made me really try hard not to be myself. I would try to I'm one of those people that stood out everywhere I went, and I did not want to stand out.
So you wanted to try to blend.
So badly. So I tried not to talk as much, which was impossible. But I tried, and I tried to be, just really dim my shine as much as I could. And I remember literally thinking, I hate that I stand out. I don't want to stand out. Yeah. And even like my parents, my dad is Black, my mom's Puerto Rican, Lebanese, and Syrian. So just even that, feeling like nothing quite matches my surroundings. And it just was really hard. So that just made me always want to make myself as small as possible, actually.
When did that change? Or has that changed? Is that still something you carry?
Yes and no. So I feel like, so I carried that all through high school.
Sure.
In young adulthood, I met my husband when I was 14. We started dating at 18.
No way.
Yeah. And we got married at 20. So we were babies when we got married. And I feel like, he was the one person I always felt like I could just completely be myself around. And he's my best friend, still is, and all of that. But, so I feel like that was the beginning, just having somebody I felt like I could just be 100% myself.
And who saw you.
Who saw me.
As you are.
As I am, exactly. Yeah. But I feel like when I turned 23, we ended up moving to Northern California, and at the time we were going to a ministry school up there. But I think getting out of my hometown and just the freedom of getting out of, getting away from everybody who already thought they knew me, and that really sent me on this journey of inner healing. I really wanted to heal because I remember having a distinct thought that I think some of the pain that I grew up with in my own house was caused because of things that weren't healed within maybe my parents. Yeah. And I knew that I wanted to have children one day, and it was important to me to be whole. And I knew I wasn't whole. I knew I was broken, and I wasn't. So it's been literally a decade of just me unlearning terrible mindsets and growing. And
it's so incredible. What I'm feeling right now is a big theme that has been on this show and the people that I talk to, and mostly I've been talking to people that I know or have a relationship with, and then I've been sort of selecting people that I want to know better, that I think I just get a feeling that there's something there. But one of the themes that we've been hearing a lot is exactly what you just said, that there's this when we look back at our childhood, or when we look and examine our childhood, we're, as adults, as functional adults, trying to unlearn a lot of the stories and a lot of the patterns and a lot of the belief systems that we were given growing up. But at the core of it typically are our family systems, who I do believe did the best with what they could.
Absolutely.
By and large. I know people have different family experiences, but an unexamined life as a parent is a really tough thing to have as a child. Like when you're a child of a parent.
Yes.
Not examining their life, not understanding that people will be different, not understanding your child.
Exactly. That really, what happened to me is what really changed the way, because I had a lot of resentment towards, my parents, quiet resentment. It wasn't a loud one. And we ended up going on a family vacation. I was like 18, 19 ish. And it was like, I think my family was like, this is our last chance with all of us to go. And we went to Texas to visit family, and then we went to the DMV to see family as well. So we kind of did this big trip and then came back. But when I was there, I remember looking at my parents and just noticing for the first time that they were children, which sounds weird, but like just seeing my mom around her mom.
Yeah.
And
like remembering that they were once children, or that they were acting like children.
But like that they were, first of all, were children, and they still are. Yes. They still are. Like they're not. I think when you're kids, you're like, my parents should know better.
Yes, of course.
100 years old, they should know, right? You think they should know everything, but as you get older, you start to realize they're on their journey too. So it was the first time I really understood they're somebody's child. I remember watching my dad interact with his father and realizing he's a son. Which I knew that logically, of course, but it clicked that the same way that I have wounds that I know I need to heal from, they probably have that too. And so I remember just feeling this overwhelming sense of love and grace towards my family in that moment, realizing they have their own stuff. We all have our stuff.
We do have our stuff. Yeah. But how prescient for you to know, even at a young age, like, I want to heal and explore the parts of me so that I don't potentially pass those on to my children. And did your husband share the same sort of philosophy around that?
Yes. And so, I'm really like, I get really into it. Got really into personality stuff and, tests and all of that stuff. And it really, first of all, what it did is it gave me language for my personality, but it also for the first time was when I realized what I contained were strengths. Because when your whole life, talkativeness was terrible in school.
Right.
The fact the teachers would say a lot like, she's sweet, but she just distracts the whole class. And it's awful, So I was constantly told who I was a problem. But I feel like for the first time I realized, like, hey, the fact that I'm outgoing and social and I'm really empathetic and I can read people, those are actually gifts. And at the time, I'm very artistic. And so I wasn't good at math or science. Yeah. And so, back then I felt like I'm not good at any of these things that I'm supposed to be good at. So I'm stupid. But I'm not stupid. I have gifts. And so anyway, I'm having this whole inner moment of like, I'm not stupid. I'm smart. Like, I'm just smart in a different way. And this wasn't the focus of a school, but this is what I'm good at. And I'm like sharing this with my husband, and we're talking about his revelations of things that he always thought, I'm not good at this. I'm not that good at that. But then you realize, no, I am very strong. Like, my husband's super stable and extremely compassionate, very nurturing. And so really great team player and all of that. So to see those things and to realize these are strengths.
Yeah. And as a couple to be able to share, I think, in self-care, self-discovery, as a value, right? As something that you value, sounds like you value to be really dear in your relationship.
Absolutely. And I think too, just as parents, we've even before we had kids, we knew like we don't ever want to make our children feel that who they are is a problem. And so, I have 3 children. My oldest I'm basically raising myself when it comes to her. So I'm like, I now understand why my parents were exhausted all the time. She's I'm literally raising myself with her. And then my middle child is like my husband, very more quiet, introverted, just as sweet. But it's interesting, and my baby is just like, she's 2 and she's wild and just into everything. But it's interesting though, to see how different they are, but how like, you couldn't say who's more gifted. They're all amazing and they're all talented and they all bring something to this world. And so it was important to us to know that just because I think more in the gray and they think black and white doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean I'm right. We're just different. So it was important to us to not even understand the way we function, but to understand the way different family members, kind of paying attention, like, I think this is their love language, or this is how they speak, or what they need. And even with our friends, we just kind of adopted. It changed the way we saw everybody, because we realized, I think a lot of our, the problems we have with other people is truly just not understanding who they are, what their gifts are, what their story is. And
we're really scared to see other people as they are.
Absolutely.
If they don't match what we think they're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And maybe even more so people we really know and love. Like our family, I often say, like, our family pushes our buttons because they installed them. I mean, this is like, this
part,
it's so close. But when you veer from the narrative that your family's established, it's tough if you don't fill that space that you're supposed to fill.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. What was your birth like for your girls?
So my first child was, she was born on her due date. So that was unique in itself, but it was a very hard pregnancy. So it just was painful and just not a fun. Everyone's like, you're glowing. And I'm like, you're so full of crap. I'm not glowing. Like this is miserable. But she came on her due date, and it's just so her personality in itself. Like, just, I'm here. She came ready. My second child, it was kind of funny with her because her unique thing there was my water broke with her. And my mom I was in Seattle at the time, and my mom was flying in from Alaska. So it was like I was getting ready to go to bed that night. In the morning, she was going to be there. And I remember distinctly being like, okay, baby, I need you to stay just hang on for a couple more hours. And then, of course, so I wake up 2 a.m. and I sit up and I stand up, and then my water breaks. And I'm like, God. Of course. I literally was like, really? Like, I yelled at my belly. And so we went in. My friend actually had to go get my mom and bring her to us and everything. And then she was born, and she's such a sweet little girl.
But she hung in until your mom got there?
She did. Okay. So my mom actually got to be there for the birth, but we weren't sure if she was.
No kidding. And then you did it a third time.
I know. Then we, for some reason, did it a third time. Now that birth absolutely changed me completely.
Wow.
Well, first of all, it was a hard pregnancy too, but it wasn't just hard. Like with my oldest, it was uncomfortable and it was just miserable. With my youngest, it was that, but it was also, I had like my heart was racing, my blood pressure was shooting up. At one point, they wondered if I had what do you call it,
gestational diabetes.
Thank you.
Okay.
They wondered if I had it, which I didn't. I didn't have it, but I had to get a bunch of tests for that. I ended up going to the emergency room twice before I gave birth because I started having trouble breathing.
Oh my gosh.
So there was just a lot. My pulse shot up, and so it was just a rough pregnancy. And on top of that, she was late. Of course she was late. And they were like, and I'm thinking my first was born on her due date. My second was early. Like, this baby's gonna cartwheel out.
Right.
Like, I'm probably 3 weeks early, which is dumb, but that's what I thought. Nope, she was late, and it was miserable. But here's the thing. So. She finally decides to show up. We go to the hospital, and when we go to the hospital, it was off. It was weird, and we had given birth to that hospital before with my second, but we got there and it was off, and everybody kind of seemed in chaos and just distracted. It's hard to explain. It's a small hospital, and
just energetically,
it was off.
Okay.
It was off, and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, so it just felt like the lady at the desk seemed distracted, and she said, okay, first thing she did is, okay, I need you to go sit in the waiting room, and I'm in active labor. Like, so that was a sign. This is going to be a different night. I didn't pick up on it, so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh
my God,
in pain.
Megan.
And so she basically, I feel like she forgot about me, and my husband went back over and was like, hey, and they're like, all right. So they get me in the room. They look, and I'm definitely in labor. And we get there, and I remember it was such a hard year, just of my life. It was such a hard year. There was family, just illnesses. One of the hardest years of my life, truly. And so it felt almost ironic that I was going through what I was going through physically to match emotionally with what I was going through. It was like, this is such a horrible year. So with my first daughter and my second daughter, I was like, very much like, maybe an epidural, maybe not. I'll just see how I'm feeling. Whatever, I'm open, to whatever. And I ended up getting an epidural with those two because for different reasons. One, they put me on Pitocin and different things. So I ended up getting with them, but it wasn't even a big thing. But this one, I want to be numb from the eyebrow down. I don't want to feel a thing.
Right.
This has been
too hard.
It's already been a hard year. Like, I don't want to feel a thing. And it was one of the first things I said. I got in. She's like, how are you? Do you feel okay? I'm like, great. I just need you to numb me immediately. And like, I'm joking. And then like, it's getting more and more tense. And they're like, okay, we'll come back to you. And it was hours of just.
Are you kidding me?
It was horrible we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. And I mean, and of course I joke. That's what I do. So I'm joking about it. And then it gets from that to like, my eyes are full of tears. Like, I'm in so much pain. I need to be numb right now. And so basically after a long time of that, they end up coming back. And my husband was like, what is going on? Like, we were all like, what is going on? And basically what had been happening, there was a woman that was there, and they just, I guess, weren't staffed enough. And she was basically kind of on her way out. Like, it looked like she was going to die. She didn't die. But everybody was focused on her to make sure she stayed alive, which great. So they didn't.
Meanwhile, you're in a hell of a lot of pain.
I'm in a lot of pain. But of course, and they just said there's something going on right now, but we're going to try to call somebody in. So they kept trying to, I think, give me hope, but I don't think they really had a plan to have somebody come in to help me. I think they were just telling me that. Anyway, then they ended up, well, do you want to go sit in water, like the tub to like help with the pain? And at first I was going to say no, because in my mind I thought that is me submitting to like having this baby natural, and I don't want to feel a thing. But I ended up going in, and it did help. But all that to say, they left us in there. We were left in there. It was basically my husband got me through labor.
Are you kidding
Yeah, they left us because they were busy. They were gone. So, I mean, it was horrible. And it, again, mirrored. I felt so alone in that season. I felt abandoned. Like, those hard seasons of your life where you feel like you're being picked on. Like,
yes.
Can one more thing go wrong? That's how it felt. So I'm in there. Finally, they come and get me, and they tell me, like, are you able to walk? And I couldn't even walk because I was in so much pain. They tried to get me to walk, which was stupid, and then I ended up starting to collapse, and they put me in a wheelchair, and they get me in. And I say, okay, this is fine, but real quick, I have to go to the bathroom. And they go, number 1 or number 2? And I'm like, I think number 2. They're like, get in the bed. So basically, I was starting to I'm crying, but I was numb all the other time, so I didn't know. So they throw me in the bed. And at this point, I'm
my
still like,
gosh. You're like, I gotta poop.
but I'm still, and they're like, just poop on the bed. Everyone does that, which I didn't have to poop. I was about to give birth. But I thought this. And, but I remember even still just the women are like, don't worry, we're trying to get, the nurses are all trying to tell me, like, we're trying to get someone to numb you, which at this point it's too late, but they're still telling me this.
Oh, my Lord.
And what changed the game for me, bless this woman's heart, she sits, it was a midwife, she sits down with me, and she goes, you're not going to get that epidural. You're not. And she just locked eyes with me. She's like, but you're going to do this?
Wow.
You're going to do this? You're going to do this? You know, she just encouraged me, and it's like all of my panic left, snapped.
And she clicked into you.
And I immediately was like, okay. And it's like all hysteria left, and I calmed down and just pushed, and baby came.
Oh.
But it changed me because of a couple of things. It was I'm the kind of person that likes to run from my pain.
Yeah.
I'm the kind, I'm in pain, you don't even know I'm in pain because I'm laughing and I'm joking and I'm silly. But it was the first time that I really had to look pain in the eye like that, and it shaped me. It changed me.
Because you could move through it.
I moved through it, and it taught me for the first time I can survive. I can survive pain. I can survive it. I don't have to run from it. I discovered my strength. I tell people when I gave birth to my daughter, I feel like I was reborn because I no longer was the girl that was this victim of things from my childhood, this always running from pain, forever running from pain, to like, I can face it.
Wow.
I can survive it. So it, you know, that was in 2017, and I feel like
Your life was different since.
It has not been the same for me since.
What can you think about that's changed materially from that moment? Like when you think it has, like, is it the way you make relationships, decisions? Like, how does it manifest, I guess, that change?
It has made me, I'm a lot more brave. I take more chances because I'm like, even if this doesn't work out, I can survive the pain. And even with relationships, I'm very much a giver, and I invest a lot. Let's say you're my best friend. I'll invest a lot in you, but it's hard for me to receive back, and I don't want to receive because if you touch my heart, you can hurt my heart later if you leave, and I don't want that. And it's taught me how to, some of the most painful things we endure shape us. We survive it and we become stronger because of it. And so even, I don't fear it. I don't fear pain. I don't know how to explain it. But for me to say that,
it's a big, big shift.
It's a big shift. And so I'm not even the move out here to LA, because I've had so many friends come to LA. You know, LA is one of those places that chews people up and spits them out. They leave. It does. And I've seen friend after friend after friend, or, you know, acquaintance, people come here. And I always knew I was supposed to be here. I knew since I was a child I'd be here one day.
Really?
I've always known. Oh, yes. I've known. Not even so much I want to be there, just to knowing you will be there one day. So I've always known it. But I think the fear of even this place
chewing you up.
I knew if it does, I can survive it. I will survive, and it has.
I think that is one of the most beautiful stories I have ever heard. What's your youngest daughter's name?
Aria.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a whole new song of your life.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. So if you look back on your childhood now, what would you? What's a lesson, I guess, that you see now looking through different eyes? Maybe something that served you that you didn't know would serve you then. Like, how has it changed, I guess, as an adult?
Looking back, my childhood was very painful. I was very isolated and lonely. But looking back, I see the purpose in the pain. There's purpose in all of that, and I'm not saying there's a comfort in knowing that nothing has been put to waste. It wasn't a waste. Yeah. I'm not saying that I believe that, you know, everyone who goes through these horrible things should have went through it and it had to happen. I think sometimes terrible things happen, but it won't be wasted. And so I can look back on the 10-year-old girl, like, for instance, I'm a writer. How I started writing is because I had kids who just literally shunned me. So I had no friends. I would sit by myself at recess, which was devastating to an extrovert like me. So I was alone all the time, and I would come home and cry about it. My mom, of course, heartbroken, just told me, you know, she said, baby, like, when you're alone, just remember that there's always God. You can talk to God. So my writing kind of started off as these letters to God. Dear God, I'm lonely. Dear, I remember sometimes they were like, dear God, help. I don't have friends. I don't want to be here. You know, just all. But that's how I started writing. And now I write all the time, and and I share these thoughts with people all over the world. But it started from a place of pain.
Yeah,
that's where that came from.
Yeah.
So I look back on all kinds of areas of my life like that, seeing like, wow, there's purpose. And it's like if I could go back and like look at myself like little me, I would say, baby, there's purpose. I promise you, this is going to be put to waste.
It sounds like you get to do that with your 3 girls.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? I mean, I think there's something, just so beautifully metaphoric about giving birth to yourself, raising yourself.
Yeah.
But also holding this space for your kids to show up in who they're going to be in this life.
That's right. That's right.
And Absolutely. You don't know who they're going to be yet. They don't know who they're going to be yet. It's the discovery part that I wish we gave us more space for in this world.
Yes. And it takes time. It's like a constant, it's constant until we go. Like I'm still discovering things about myself.
And hopefully we will until the day we die.
Go. That's right. What it should be. But it's almost like we're taught, okay, you have until you're 18 and you got to know. I know, and you better commit. Yeah.
Honey, I'm so glad I didn't peak at 18.
Woo. Exactly.
I mean, there are people I know who that seemed to be like the best moments of their life, and I wanted that so bad.
Me too.
I too felt like the same way. I would have been sitting with you, like friends too. Well, I started writing because I remember my grandpa. I would tell him I was just made up. I mean, I loved after school specials, so I'll date myself. So I'm 46, going to be 47. So I'm a kid of the late 70s, 80s. I loved after school specials. Do you know what those were? So before we even had talk shows, there would be like at this 3:00 spot, there would be these like social mission, social message programs. It would be like dramatizations around stories of kids, like why you shouldn't do drugs, or like stories of like, eating disorders, like all the issues. I was always drawn to like the darker parts of things in life because I saw them, I experienced them. I was always so surprised. I grew up in like suburban Miami, but I was like, why aren't we talking about all these things that I'm seeing?
Say, they're talking about what we don't talk about.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, and so I was always drawn to that. So there were these after school specials, and people like Jim Carrey and others would like star in them when they were like itty bitty actors. And
I love that.
So it would be like about AIDS, and it would be about whatever. And so I would watch all of these shows because usually they would be about like the outcast girl, the outsider person, and what they were going through. And I was always just those morality shows I was like really into. But anyway, I'd write them down. I had all these kind of crazy stories, and I would was very close with my grandpa Michael, and I would like tell him all these stories all the time, and he was like, honey, you have to write them down. Right. And I was like, ugh, who wants to write them down? Like, I just want to tell them, I just want to talk about it, right? And I never will forget, like when I moved out to California when I was 26, living alone in like a little studio apartment, and I was like literally woken up with my grandfather's voice one night that was like, write it down. And I started writing. I mean, I had been writing, I kept journals and stuff, but like I really started writing, and it unlocks I feel like your divine connection.
That's right.
And I felt guided for it. My first book deal was weird. My first book deal that I had, I met, do you ever hear of the psychic John Edward? Mm-mm. Do you remember him? So he did this like show on TV for a while where he talked to dead people. Okay. Anyway, long story, weird story short, I ended up meeting him, and he's like, oh, I'm going to help you publish your book. I'm like, I'm not writing a book. He was like, you have 3 chapters under your bed.
Stop it. Wow.
Megan, I had it wasn't 3 chapters, but I had something I started writing that night that I woke up. So anyway, I've always felt like there's been this like mystical, magical connection to writing, because it sort of not just unlocks where we want to go, it unlocks, I think, where we are.
That's it. You said it perfectly.
In a way. So I too, as a kid, like that kept me alive. Storytelling kept me alive.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
So is that what you want to do? What is the dream for you in your life? What does it look like now?
I love all forms of storytelling.
Yeah.
I am in love, and it's exactly what you said. I feel like I owe my life to it. Yeah. I feel devoted to storytelling in a way I can't even explain, because it was movies, it was writing, it was poetry.
What were your favorite movies as a kid growing
up?
Gosh.
I loved, so when I was little, I liked a lot of movies like in the 90s, so I'm going to be turning 34 here soon. So like all of the movies that were like the underdog winning.
Yes.
But one of my favorite movies that I remember loving was the movie Harriet the Spy.
Yes.
I loved it because she was this girl who like wrote everything down and just always kept a journal with her and just observed the world, which is how I always did life. But she also went through this, bit where she was very outcast and all of that. So I felt like when I saw her story, I felt like I saw me a little bit. But I love the ability to, I loved how storytelling just brings us all closer, and it's like a mirror.
Yeah.
You know, and so anyway, I love writing, I love poetry, I even love acting. I love things that are able to tell a story and connect someone to really, I tell my husband all the time, I want people to read what I write or whatever I share and see parts of themselves.
Yes.
I really want it just to be a
Yes.
mirror, because that's the point of storytelling.
I know. I also think that speaks to the little girls in us who weren't seen in that way.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like that. I feel like that's probably the thing that drives me the most is I know, I don't think I was really truly seen in my personal relationships. I didn't get married until I was 40.
Okay.
So, you know, I had committed relationships. I had been in love before, but my husband sees me.
Yeah.
In a way. And there is something about being seen that changes a person.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like that fearlessness. Now, I'm not choosing to have biological kids. I'm going to try to make the world better for yours. But, and that's another journey, I think, too, is like where you sit as a woman if you're not giving birth to a human.
Sure.
Right. And I've also been struggling with like, I don't want to only just be working as a form of a value system, but like, how do you find that equilibrium to give birth? Like, I feel like I'm giving birth to myself right now in the changes that I'm going through in middle age. Like it's a whole new piece. And there's just a richness to women's stories. But we only know, like, we only see so little. Yes.
But I think we all walk, like you said, we see there's a small narrative. There's the working woman who's like killing the game, and then there's the stay-at-home mom. I feel like those are the extremes.
Right.
But there's so many layers to it. And some of the people that I have felt mothered by the most were not mothers in the technical, you know, they didn't give birth, but they did though, because of what they've done. I just feel like, I don't know. And it's important to me with 3 girls, especially, me and my husband talk about this. I'm like, I don't want them to ever I feel like there is no, whatever womanhood is to them is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like this.
Yes.
It's not this strict line that we have made it or pick. It's A or B. Do you want to be the working person, or do you want to be the person who stays at home? You get to choose, and that's the beauty of it. And there's so many examples of powerful women who've done life so much differently than I have, but I would not be who I am without them.
Yeah.
So,
books gave me that worldview into women who didn't have children. Oprah did. I mean, Oprah was the first person I could ever see as a young adult woman, because I definitely grew up in like the heart of her talk show Time Live. And I remember thinking like, this woman has America eating out of the palm of her hand, and she's unmarried without children, right? And in a curvier body, and she's this like powerful Black woman in this world that like wants to squeeze all that power out. And I thought, and she was vocal about wanting to be a mother of another kind, of the otherhood, you know, and like the girls' school and stuff. I just remember, like, feeling like, oh, okay, that kind of fits for me.
Sure.
But I wish we had different narratives for girls. I'm so happy that your girls may grow up understanding that they get to define how to contribute as a woman in the world.
I never say when you're a mother, I say if.
Oh, how great.
You know, if you get married, you know, if you don't have to, you actually don't have to, you know. And
did you always know that you wanted to have kids?
I did know I wanted to have kids. I love children, because children to me are the most honest, and they're the most. I think they live the way we're all meant to live. They really do, and then life turns us into this thing that it's like. But who they are, I think, is who we are really supposed to be. It's a mirror of who we
essence,
are. Yeah. So I knew that. Wow, I did know I wanted to be a mom. Mm-hmm.
So before we sat down to talk, when we were talking about the title of the show, you said that this was resonant for you, like death had been in your life.
Yes.
Lately. Mm-hmm. Will you talk about that?
Sure. I lost in 2017. I lost 2 people that were extremely dear to me. I lost my grandmother on my mom's side, and I lost my aunt very, very suddenly.
Also on your mom's side?
On my dad. So my dad's sister, his little sister. So, and it was hard. So to backtrack a little, we were in Texas at the time, and let's see, what year is it?
It's off. 2020. I know. It
2020,
feels like
2019. Okay, so 2019 is when I lost people. I think I said 2017. I don't know. I'm off. Last year we lost people. I lost somebody.
Feels like a million years.
It does.
By the way.
It does. That was a lot. Yeah. But anyway, beginning of 2019, we left Texas. We came here.
Yeah.
And my grandma, when I said goodbye to my grandma. I'm trying not to cry. My last memory of my grandma, she comes out of the door. She always does this. We will say bye to her, we'll kiss her goodbye, and then when we go to the car, she'll run out and she'll cry and wave. Done it my whole life, right? She did it this time, and I sobbed. I sobbed a way that didn't even make sense. And my husband said, I think I knew. I think I knew. And she, at that point.
She wasn't ill at that time?
She wasn't. She had health scares throughout, but she bounced right back. And she was just a firecracker, like went to bingo, gamble. She was just the person that you felt like would never die, like a Betty White type of, like, they'll never die, you know? They're just, but when I said bye to her, I remember wailing. I cried, not in front of her, but I wailed and cried, and it took me like a good 2 hours to stop crying. And my husband said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "I just don't know if I'm going to see her again." And at this point, I was planning to come back in just 4 months, or 4 or 5 months because of a, what do you call it? You know, one of the conferences, like a blogger type conference. So I was like, I'm going to be back in Austin, and I'll see her. But I just knew. But at the same time, I told myself, like, everything's okay. Well, then we got here. A week after we landed here, her health plummeted, suddenly, just plummeted. And it was basically her fighting for her life until she passed away. But it was really hard on me because, I mean, we were struggling so much here. We didn't have money to go back. It was like, that was it. And it was so hard the way she went, because it felt, I remember just battling. It's so weird, though, because she was always so full of life and all of this, and then now she's just
Did she die in a hospital?
She did. She died in a hospital. Her body just basically shut down, and then she passed away.
It's hard to imagine the people we love in that space.
In that spot. It was awful, especially her.
What was her name?
Georgette.
Georgette.
And so that happened in May, and I feel like, you know how grief is. You're fine, and then you're terrible, and then you're fine, and then you feel like you got punched in the chest. And so it was like that all year. And it was just a hard year in general getting set up here. But anyway, we're almost at the end of the year, right? And it's December, and I'm like, I just cannot wait for 2019. I don't ever want to see you. Exactly. For real. I was like so done, and I'm like, just a few more weeks, and I don't ever have to see this raggedy year again. I mean, we're almost there. Yeah. And then December 4th, I get a call that my aunt died, and my aunt was young and one of my favorites, just one of my favorite people in the world. Just, I love her, and I didn't expect it. None of us did. It was very sudden, and I feel like it knocked me down in such a way because I didn't expect it. At least with my grandma, she was, older, much older, in her 80s, and lived a very full and happy life. And there was this progression. It was a quick one, but there was a progression with her. She's gone, and I remember being upset and just kind of getting in bed and just wanting to not do life. And then I thought of her. And I thought of how suddenly she went, and, she had plans for retirement and all these things, and she went and she was gone. And it's as though I could hear her say, you better not waste your time, whatever time you got. Like, you gotta give it your all. You gotta give it your all, because tomorrow isn't promised. And so I had like a week or two of just depression, and then I kind of woke up and I thought, I owe it to her. Yeah. I owe it to me. Yeah. I owe it to this little thing we call life that is so short, to just give it all. I can't. Yeah. What better way to honor her than to live my life unapologetically.
See, this is why I was so drawn to doing this show, for a number of different reasons, but I also wanted to normalize death. Yes. Because I used to only think we could talk about death when it was really tragic or in the news. It's really the only time we do it, right? Everybody dies every single day. Right. And unless it personally affects you, I mean, we go on every single day. We don't think about it. But I'm more and more curious about making end of life more exciting, more loving, more. I just want to change the way I think about dying. And I had a similar year. I mean, 2019 sucked for me also. For it was a rough year for sure. But
throw the whole year away.
Yeah, throw the whole year away. I mean, I also just feel quite candidly that the Trump presidency has aged everybody in the entire United States and world dramatically. But I think about 2017 into 2018, I had a life-changing moment in which I had two losses at the very top of 2018. I lost my aunt Frida to cancer, and then I lost a friend who I actually became friends. I've talked about her on the show a couple of times. Her name is Myra. She was a client of mine.
Wow.
And I met her once and like super just fell in love with her. Kind of
Right.
like how I was drawn to you. We hadn't even met before, but
Right.
I'm just like, come on, let's talk about her and felt things. Like I met her once. She cussed at a meeting and I loved her. And then I just thought we'd have all this time to become friends. A couple weeks later, she moves out to California with her family. I get a call from her husband, lets me know she's got stage 4 liver cancer all over her body. She has 3 young kids. They just moved to California.
Wow.
And then a couple months later, I get a call and he says, by the way, I've never had coffee with her. I've never hung out. I've never even had this kind of conversation with her, right? He says she's going to stop chemo and she'd like to see you. And my husband, Felipe, and I, we went. And again, like, you know, I've had lots of deaths in my life and I've had some traumatic deaths in my life, but I wasn't scared going to see her.
Wow.
I was curious. If I ever needed, and I don't because I'm a very spiritual person, but if I ever needed proof that there was a divine order involved in this,
Right.
I became friends, Megan, with Myra the last 7 weeks of her life. I became friends with somebody exiting the planet.
Wow.
And it was the most mystical, beautiful thing I have ever experienced. I mean, she was very ill and she didn't have it was a gift. She didn't have a tremendous amount of lucidity, but there was connection. And we fell in love with her family. And we became this beautiful blended family with ease. And I think she drew us there to, you know, and I'll see her, you know, daughter tomorrow. She's got 3 kids now. They're 13 and 9 and 7. And, you know, before she passed, she said to my husband, okay, you're in charge of Oliver's, her son, you know, his haircuts, me. I was in charge of puberty. I mean, she's got great sisters who also take care of the kids, but we each kind of had this like task, right? Of like, how are we going to show up for these kids?
Right.
And anyway, it just, for me, losing those 2 people in such a rapid space, but also feeling that there was such love and growth in death.
Yes.
Like I would want her to be back. I think about it all the time. I feel guilty I get to see her kids and see them grow up in a way she never will. And then at the same time, I feel grateful because I'm like, I am loving these kids and I know she would want that. Right? I am like trying to channel how she might want to be, you know, showing up for them. And so those are the things that I feel like you're never prepared for. And I mean, I wouldn't have ever known that all of a sudden within a very short period of time, I would have a new family. I would have children
But
of
that's
another
what
mother.
the death births things.
Exactly.
It births, and every death that I've experienced in my life, or even globally, there's something births from it. It's hard to, and again, death is something I never wanted to talk about.
Yep.
Ever, because it's dark and yucky, and let's make me laugh. Let's be happy and colorful, but
Yeah.
it births.
I love that. It does birth. And I also think there's death in other kinds, right? Some of the things we're going to explore, like on the show and in my life that I'm exploring, are like death of dreams.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
We talked about that because we don't talk about like, you know, dreams die, goals die, things we thought we were going to do in our life, they change. And to mourn those, to grieve those, to honor those, and then to move on. Like there's lots of deaths of friendships, death of relationships we often talk about, but deaths are part of ourselves.
They are. And, you know, the thing with, I've been going through a lot with death of dreams. That has just been the theme of my life. And I remember feeling for a while like I was betraying my younger Megan. Younger Megan dreamed of this. And so you better, you know, this is, but what I've learned, this has really changed my whole mindset. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you know what I've realized is I think some dreams are these lifelong dreams, but there's dreams that I think that are meant to carry you to a certain place. And that's it.
Yes.
And that's like, you know, I said, I think everything that we set out to do, we want it to be the thing. Right. The thing that like we were born to do, the thing that gives us our purpose, that makes us come alive.
Yep.
But we forget about the thing that leads to the thing, right? And so I think sometimes we have these dreams, and I have dreams that led me, like for instance, when I was younger, I was obsessed with music. I've played piano since I was 4. I sang. And all of that. So my dreams evolved around that. That's what I wanted to do. And it took me. And my music saved me. It got me through my hard season. And then mid-20s, I was like, I love music. I still love it. I still do it. But that wasn't the dream anymore.
Yeah. See, I think about I exactly the same way. I mean, I think as a I think about young Jess and all of the things that I wanted, including coming to Hollywood was a big part of that,
Right.
of that dream in a different way. And then I think our dreams, the other part is either they go away or they ebb and flow or they transition into something else.
Yes.
Like, I also feel like, for me, it's about separating what's a dream and what's a goal. And I think our world gives us like lots of goals we're supposed to achieve. But a dream for me, now I'm like changing my whole mindset around it. Like, I think too, it happens a little bit when you get into middle age. I don't know. This is my experience. It's just that it becomes less achievement focused and more experience focused. I love that. Like, you started off the conversation by saying you only really make these memories. The memories are the most tangible things we could leave behind because they live in other people.
Forever. Yeah.
I mean, I could have all the titles, accolades, zeros in my bank account. Doesn't matter.
Right.
You don't take that with you.
Right.
And what you do take is like these memories. Like, I will
Right.
never forget Myra. Myra is my friend who I met on her way out of the world. I will never, ever, ever forget
Absolutely.
her. She has planted a seed in me and a relationship to her children. Like, I looked at my husband and he said to me, "We will never not be in these children's lives." I was like, that's right. Mm-hmm. What a gift.
What a gift.
But if we were closed, right, to how we could be a parent or how we could be, like, we
Or
wouldn't
the
have been
fact
open.
of like she's
It's not
dying.
right.
I don't want to deal with that. That's negative.
Correct.
That's depressing.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah,
there could have
I
been
don't
a
even wanna
version
look,
where we
right?
didn't even go to her house.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because most people avoid it, but when you get close, I read things on dying because there's a while where I read a lot on it because it scared me so much.
Yeah.
And as I read it, I'm like, everyone describes it as this beautiful. Like, once you get past the initial like terror of it,
Yeah.
there's actually beauty and there's gifts within it.
Yeah. Well, do you ever think about what would be a perfect death for you if you could?
I don't. Here's the reason why. I feel like, first of all, I deal with anxiety, so I'm one of the kind of people that if I dwell on that too long, that won't end well for me. But also, I feel like
That's a
not
mystery.
knowing for me is a gift in itself, and it makes me more determined.
Yeah.
Determined to, like, it could be today.
Yeah.
It could be.
Right.
I mean, and so.
Right.
I think for me, what would be ideal, it's not even like, oh, I would want to die in a bed or asleep. It's
Right.
more like I want to die where my family knows that she lived life to the fullest, and I want them to know that I love them dearly. The people in my life that I've talked to, I just want to know I made an impact, and it doesn't even have to be on a stage or big name. I want to know that there are people that are like Myra was to you.
Yeah.
That's what I want, and that would be like the perfect death to me is a death that leaves people changed
Yeah.
for the better.
With memories.
With memories, yeah.
I love that. So a big part of this show for me is a love letter to living and that urgency that we were talking about. So what are you urgently trying to create in your life right now? Like, where's the urgency for you of something that's really important and shiny for you right now?
I love this question. I think right now, because of the stage, there's two things. My children is a big motivation for me because I feel like I have to make sure that I live my life to the fullest and I go after these things that I want to do. For me, it's being creative, to explore all my areas of creativity because I have a bunch of different things I love to do and to do it fearlessly. I think there's still a fear for me sometimes of being seen as a girl who just wants attention. And I've had to let that go, like the pain from my past, and just dive into it.
Yeah.
It's important for me, though, that my girls see that, especially as a mother, so they know that if they choose to go this route, that life doesn't have to end, creativity doesn't have to end just because you're a wife and just because you're a mother. So that's this urgency because I know I have such a short time with my children. I mean, my daughter, she'll be turning 8. And then in 10 minutes, she'll be leaving. So there's that. And then also there's an urgency. So my husband right now is out pursuing his dream. So my husband for years worked on cars, but his dream has always been to cook. He's an amazing cook.
Wow.
And so, and to have a restaurant and all that. So now I've been watching him build that, and it's been amazing to watch. And it's almost like I kind of got in this place of just being really happy because I'm a cheerleader by nature.
Yeah.
I love seeing him win, and I was not really content with that, but okay. And but my aunt, especially passing, made it urgent for me to, like, you cannot assume that you have time to get to your dreams later. You can't. You can't wait to write the book. You can't wait to, you gotta go. And it's not I'll say this, it's made me I'm not stressed by the urgency. It's not a stressful feeling.
Yeah, I get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do get
Because
that.
I have had times where I've gone to like conferences or listened to things
Oh,
and
yeah.
I leave stressed.
I feel like that's our ego driving that.
Yes,
And
so
this
they're
is
like,
more of like,
how
yeah,
old am I? Is
yeah,
there enough time? I'm
yeah.
already late. Forget it. You know,
That
like,
feels like it's up here in the head. I feel like what you just said is in the heart.
yeah, it's like it's a drawing, and I just
Yeah.
want to always be moving in the direction of it. And I think there's dreams. I think of it as a like, you know, passing the baton. I think there's races we run all the way to the end, and I think there's races that we start, we don't get to finish, and we weren't
right.
even meant to finish. I think somebody picks it up from where we
Agreed.
are and goes with it. And
Yeah.
so I'm just my focus is just to be going in the right direction. And doing it as passionately as possible. And I believe however it lands, it was how it's supposed to land.
Yeah.
And it's no longer by the age of 40, by the age of 50, I got to get this done by 60. It's no longer like that anymore. I'm just going to
Yeah.
be moving.
Yeah.
And everything that's meant to come to me will come at just the right time.
Oh, I believe in that divine
know?
timing for sure. What was your aunt's name, by the way?
Aunt G.
Aunt
G.
G.
Gloria, we called her G.
Gloria, Georgette, Myra.
Yeah.
We summon all of those amazing women in this conversation because that's a legacy that they left for you, for me, and the memory that we get to pass on. That's a gift when we're alive to live with that urgency. That's how I feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel so grateful that you said yes to come on here and we didn't know each other and we got to talk like this. This is a real, look, we live in a world where, look, this is a good part of social media. This is why I love it, right?
Yes.
Here are you and I getting to connect, and we've got mutual friends in our world and
Sure.
we're in similar circles, but like we got to connect and then we had this moment, this opportunity to meet in person.
I love it.
But I also feel like the world, especially in that social media space, can be so performative at times.
Yeah,
And
yes.
so it's easy to be disconnected, and this kind of connection is so rare, and I crave it as a person. Like
Same.
I need to see the whites of your eyes. I need to be like
Same.
connected and like, I don't know.
And don't you sometimes feel like you're the only one who feels that way? It's not true. But don't you
Yes.
feel like, am I the only one who wants to like
yeah,
actually
meet in person.
connect and not a like doesn't count? Like, I don't know. Am I the only person?
No,
So,
this was really beyond my wildest imagination. You lived up to the hype in my head. You're
Great.
amazing, and no, honestly, thank you for coming in and just being you.
thank you.
I look
It's
forward to
been an
having
honor
more
be here.
convos, more
Yes,
convos
I love
in real
that.
life.
Please.
There are a couple of things that are revealing themselves to be themes as I do these kinds of conversations. I think one is, no matter whether I'm talking to somebody I know really well or somebody I've just met for the first time, the consistency that keeps coming up is around the theme of learning to really find yourself and define yourself, separate and away from how we grew up, how our families have labeled us, the narratives that we've been given about our life. I'm just so amazed that every single person I'm talking to literally is having similar journeys, and sometimes we just don't get to talk about it like this. So I get really lit up every time I discover that truth in every person that I'm talking to. The other thing that's revealing itself to be true for me in these conversations is I love people. I love talking to people that I know and people that I don't know. I just did this incredible interview with Megan Baca. I've never met her in person. The first time we met was today in the bathroom before we recorded this podcast. I've just known of her. I've loved her work. We're friends on Instagram. And the level of trust and depth that we were able to get to as two strangers actually gives me hope for the world. And it reminds me that we are so much more alike than we are different. And that if we just create the space and the time and the intention to really look at each other and know each other and listen to each other, some of the things that she said, I feel like will stick with me forever. Her stories are our stories. And I feel so grateful to have another real life friend now, IRL. And that is the power of social media. I will give it that. I'm sometimes a social media skeptic. I don't love the performative part of social media, but I love how it can connect two strangers together to become friends. You've been listening to We're All Gonna Die Anyway with me, Jess Weiner. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can also watch this podcast by checking out my YouTube channel for filmed episodes, behind the scenes footage, and all other kinds of amazing video goodies. And of course, you can always visit me at jessweiner.com. We're All Gonna Die Anyway is exec produced by me and produced by Lauren Chavez Myers. Our episodes are recorded, filmed, and edited by Jeff Franklin and Adam Lippert of B Film. And our original amazing music is by Becca and Destiny Petrell. As always, I want to send a special thank you to the love of my life, the amor de mi vida, Felipe Lopez. And if you love this podcast, please make sure to tell your friends, subscribe, and leave a review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Most importantly, if there is something that stood out to you from today's episode, I want to hear about it. So if you want to share your own story, leave a comment, ask a question, please send me an email at podcast@jesswiener.com. I can't wait to hear from you. Bye, babies.